Hello and welcome to Research and Evaluate Construction Materials and Methods. I'm your lecturer Michael Jenkins and I'll be taking you through this course for the next 18 weeks, 16 weeks of which is going to be essentially lessons and assessment. As you'd probably notice, it has, an important part of the title is research, and that is primarily what this subject is about. It's about you getting in there and doing some research about a range of materials and methods for buildings. But it's not only about yourselves carrying out the research, but I'll be guiding you through that initial understanding of construction processes and materials, how they work, how they're used, etc., to give you that basis from which to carry on with your research. It's essentially something that you'll continue, or I hope you'll continue to use throughout your career. It's a lifelong learning process and something that I very much enjoy myself, and I'm glad to bring you along on this journey. So if you're seeing this video, that's because you've already been given the Learn Key, so you will have received an email from me with a Learn Key to log into this site, or you've come to one of my first classes and you've got the Learn login. So once you're in here, you'll see a list of sections down the left-hand side of the page, and a little bit of information here on this introductory page, including where I'll be posting the new video just under here. So next bit you'll be having a look at is the Before You Start section. So a little bit of information in regards to extensions. Because there is quite a lot to cover in this subject, it is a very, very big subject and one of the foundation subjects in what you'll be working in. We have to manage our time quite well, and because of that, if you want to have any extensions, I definitely need to know about that as soon as possible, and there's a formal process for going about that. So that's all laid out here in the application for extension. There's also some information about orientation. Being one of the first subjects you'll be doing in this course, we've got that information in there for orientation as well. You'll also notice right down the bottom, I've got a section here for recordings. I've already got a section in there for Semester 1 2020 recordings. So far, well, if you're watching this video right at the start, there won't have been any class recordings put up just yet. But when you go into that Semester 1 2020 recordings, there'll be some introductory recordings in there as well, with some of the introduction to study at TAFE in there, as well as some guest speakers that we had at an attendance day last semester. So all of these things were recorded there at the attendance day, but it's also some additional handy information for you there, put up by Student Services. So click on this link as soon as you can, and have a look at those recordings, and keep following the recordings as they get updated. Primarily they get updated on a weekly basis. However, some classes are actually run as a little bit of a workshop, or as we do a bit of a tour around the TAFE here or sites adjacent to see some construction work going on and some materials in application. So not every week is going to be up there, but primarily recordings will be updated on a weekly basis. So after we had a look at the Before You Start, have a look at the course information. Set out in the course information is, first of all, there's the unit of competency. So as some of you may be aware, all of our subjects have an underlying curriculum written. It's a national framework that sets out exactly what we should be covering in each subject and how that should be assessed, etc. That information is in there if you want a little bit of light reading in regards to what you're studying and how you'll be assessed. But if not, that's also fine. That's primarily my job to interpret that document and create the classes from there and the assessments, etc. Also, guide to referencing. So, being research, certainly you can be quoting other people's work within your work. That is part of the course, but it should be referenced. Now, whilst I'm not a stickler on commas and semicolons, etc., and the Harvard form of referencing, basically there are basic standards. The basic standard is that I can tell where you got that information from, when you got that, and it's been identified as not your own writings, that it's actually sourced from somewhere else. So it's important to reference all of your sourced materials that you use. Also below that, you'll see there's a semester outline. So the semester outline, I'll just open that up, it's a relatively general document that sets things out on a week by week basis. I've put in here in red when various different important assessment events are happening or things are due. Primarily we stick fairly well to this outline, but things do vary slightly at times when we get some guest lecturers in and things like that, or whether there are some aspects which require a little bit more going over, that take a little bit longer and push into other sections. So you've got that guide there as a general guide, but yeah, like the recordings, it does vary from time to time. Okay. Then directly below that, there's a bit of a summary of what the unit is about and the assessments that are contained within that. So we've got 5 assessment tasks. Assessment task 1 is actually for you to be setting up your research tools and your research repository. So I want to see really early on in the piece that you've set up a OneNote page for, basically it's a digital scrapbook for including all your research and helping you collate your research and guide your research. So I want to see that set up well, and then also I want to see a filing system with folders and subfolders where you contain a lot of your commonly referenced materials. That's something that I do in practice. I've found OneNote to be particularly good tool for carrying out a lot of research, and then also I set up folders and subfolders for all of my design guides, etc. All the material which are commonly referenced. An important thing in that is because digital information is updated on quite a regular basis, version control of things is also very important. For example, if you have a design guide for bracing that gets updated every 6 months or every year, you want to keep that design guide that you use for that project, the formal one, with that project. So you don't want to find that things have changed and there's an appearance of you being non-compliant because of that. So it's important to keep older design guides and use your version control for that. But yeah, well, I'll explain that task a little bit more as we get to that in week 1 or week 2. Following on from that, there's a group task. So for those of you that are internal students, you get to work on this task within the class. For those of you that are external students, you'll be brought in for the attendance day, and it's mandatory that you get together and work as a group. Previously, I found it to be a great learning exercise for students, and what it is that you sit down with looking at a project and you work out how that building can be built, or what sort of solutions you can be presenting to a client to ensure that it meets the bushfire attack levels for that area. Something which is really quite topical after the summer we've had this year. Then you've got 3 research tasks or 3 research reports to write, 1 on a residential dwelling, 1 on a multi-storey dwelling, and 1 on a multi-storey commercial dwelling. Multi-storey commercial building. For those reports, I've provided you with a pro forma. I've basically given you the skeleton of what you have to produce in that report. You just got to fill in the dots. So I've made it as efficient and simple as I can within the constraints of what actually has to be assessed and what evidence I have to see that you've presented to me. On that, just a little note to success in that what I've always found is that students who are doing or put together a really good OneNote and are doing a lot of excellent research are also the students that find it really easy to write the report and produce a really good report. So basically that's what it all comes back to, is the degree of research and the level of enthusiasm you put into doing your research for this subject. So I'll be guiding that, but if you want to make things simple for you when it comes to doing the reports, it's important to get that research done and maintain that throughout. So then, following on from our course information, we've got our first section. So this will be for our week 1 lecture. So let's get started. It's basically a bit of a background as to why we're here, why it's so important to study this, and also some of the consultants, etc., that you'll be dealing with throughout the building process. So it gives a bit of an outline to it. So we're not getting into the meat essentially of all of the structural or aesthetic aspects of the building just yet. We're just giving that background about the environment in which all of this technology sits. And then from there, you'll find the Learn page is broken up into 3 distinct sections. So our Class 1 building, our Class 2 building, our Class 5 and 6 buildings. So those building classes may not mean anything to you at this point. That's really quite fine and as to be expected. But after doing this introductory class, you should understand why we have different classifications of buildings and where that relates to. But put simply, our Class 1 is a single residential building. Our Class 2 is a multi-residential building. So it's residential in nature, but there are several units attached. And then our Class 5 and 6 building, that's our multi-storey commercial. So Class 5, that's office space, and Class 6 is retail of some sort. So we'll be looking at these 3 particular projects, and you'll find that throughout the study in your Cert 4 in building design drafting, you'll keep going back to these 3 building projects as well. So we'll be basing our research around those, or putting our research in the context of those 3 buildings. So I hope you thoroughly enjoy the subject. Certainly, if you have any queries or concerns throughout, don't hesitate to contact me and approach me about any queries and concerns you have with the subject. And I wish you all the best success. Thank you.